YOU Sales, where you're our universe. I'm George, and I'm here with Charles O'Toole.
We all seem to agree on many things here.
We didn't finish yet.
The wonderful people at the Shifty Shapes company, they decided they were going to give us some of their product at very low prices so we could sell them to you, make a profit for.
What the fuck?
We finally got to the conversation, as he claimed, where we disagree.
I like to put them on top of things for decoration purposes.
Things on top of things are a staple of decorating.
Right.
Things on things.
Yeah, better lie to show consideration.
Have we all figured out who's who here? Like Cyrus, do you get an energy from these guys automatically? Because when you initially met Cyrus, did you get the sense that he was law enforcement?
There were key phrases that were given out that they could make a determination on what side of the group, what side of the fence everybody's on.
Right, and what were those nuances?
Tony was obvious, based on some of the key phrases.
What were those phrases? He was talking about Vegas back in the good old days?
Talking about the generation and the families. And Jimmy, you know, with certain words, the scams and, you know, running a racket, this and that.
And also, is it safe to say what everybody's wearing? But I mean, you guys are, I mean, you definitely look like a cop. Right?
Okay. Well, as you could say, if you think so.
Could Cyrus be considered maybe?
Cyrus could be a born-again bad guy, a born-again good guy who was a bad guy, or he was undercover at some time in his life.
Cyrus, you want to care to comment on that?
He's dead on.
Jimmy, you're kind of running, is it fair to say you're running the family business?
Yeah, but it's my business. What I'm doing now, I fell into kind of on my own because technology allowed me to get away with it.
What do you mean technology? You've been doing this for a long time.
I was doing it for a long time, but technology and what they're doing with certain sites allows me to get away with what I'm doing.
Right.
If it was the old school or old ways, back in like Tony's day, no offense, it would be a lot harder for me. I take bets.
Okay.
So that's what I do.
You also did other things.
I did a lot of other things.
You served some time, and you were in for conspiracy, right?
Conspiracy.
Right, okay.
Narcotics.
Is it safe to say that you're done with that world?
No, that's all done.
You're all done,
The
right?
narcotics end of it, yeah,
Right.
that's done.
So you get two brothers, right?
Correct.
Okay, and one of your brothers
was a DA, was a DA.
Right.
Now he's in his own practice.
Right. And the other brother is with you?
Not with me, just getting by on his own. Nothing really, nothing into what I'm into.
Okay.
I went a whole different way.
And just for the record, your dad was
my dad was a bookie from the old school.
Right.
Did his own thing, old school.
Lifelong.
Lifelong, yeah.
Okay, right. He's retired now?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, good. Tony, you ran the gambling rackets for your dad?
Well, I ran it for him and me.
Right.
When he went to jail, I was available to protect his business too.
Right. Did you ever have any resentment towards your father for actually not doing enough to steer you away from that world?
Well, actually, my father always tried to steer me away. I was the one who tried to stay in it.
But if your dad puts you in a casino in Vegas, how is that steering away?
Because he put me in legitimate, legalized gambling casinos, not illegal casinos.
Right. Initially, you didn't want to go into that world.
I was a prize fighter. I was a middleweight, and I wanted to be the middleweight champ of the world.
You also had other aspirations. You joined the service, right?
I was in the United States Air Force.
Right.
I represented the Air Force in the Olympics back in 1956.
Also accounting, right? Wasn't accounting in your life?
Yeah, I majored in accounting under the GI Bill of Rights.
Right. How do you think your life would have been if you became an accountant?
Boring.
Boring.
I'm sober 23 years. I found sobriety 23 years ago, July 11th.
Right.
For you.
After I violently took care of a punk who hurt my daughter.
Let's not jump the
There
gun.
was a reason for it.
There was a reason for
That
it.
I found sobriety.
We'll get that.
A
we'll get to
drastic
that.
thing, and something good came out of it.
Cyrus, you grew up in Harlem.
Yeah,
And you have brothers and sisters.
one of each.
Right.
I'm the oldest.
And not so well, right? You guys had some friction when you were kids because
Yeah.
you saw that maybe your brother was doing fucked up things that you didn't want to be a part of?
Yeah, that was more towards the when we got older.
Right.
Yeah, he was a little out there.
Right. And what happened? Did that cause a friction with you guys?
It kind of does,
Yeah.
because there have been instances where, I've gotten calls and people are looking for him, and they're calling me.
Right.
The guys from the warrant squad are calling me, and I'm like, listen, I don't know where he is.
So in a way, his business kind of bleeds onto your life.
A little bit, yeah.
And so you become known for something you don't want to become known for.
Right. So
Right.
I got to separate myself.
You guys
from
have a
him.
good relationship now?
It's better. I talk to him every now and then.
Right. So when you guys talk, though, are you curious to see, like, what? In other words, is it your responsibility as a law enforcement guy to actually find out what he's doing, or it's a tough call, isn't it?
It's dicey. It's dicey. I mean, if he does something in front of me, obviously, then it is what it is. But he's a smart guy.
He's a
very
smart guy.
very smart. He's a survivor, to say
Yeah.
the least.
That doesn't bleed into.
No, and it's brief. It's not like, we don't spend a day together. We spend, an hour here, an hour there. We
Right.
shoot the shit, and then he goes his way. He knows, he doesn't come to my house.
Right.
I don't go to his house. We'll meet up somewhere. We'll shoot the shit, and that's it.
Right. Jimmy, you say that you have a great relationship with your brothers.
Going out to dinner with them tonight. Every week we meet for dinner.
Right, which
Family
is
meets.
lovely.
Yeah, beautiful thing.
Isn't there a curiosity with your brother that he wants to ask you things about your
Oh,
life?
he knows. I mean, he knows what,
He
he
knows.
knows,
Does
he
he-
knows everything about my life.
If he does know everything about your life, does he not have a responsibility as a district attorney to do something?
Was a district attorney.
Right. But when he was and he knew.
Well, I got busted. When he first started is when I got busted.
Right. He helped
So
you through
was
that,
just
right?
in. Yeah, him and his wife was also an ADA.
Right.
So they were both ADAs, him and his wife, and that's when I got busted. So they both wrote letters for me, which I think helped me out.
Right.
And then I got out and got into other shit. And listen, I did okay for myself,
Right.
right? If my life ends today,
Yeah.
I did okay. Financially, I did okay.
Right.
Never worked a job in my life.
Yeah, but that's provided that we measure your life by finance.
Exactly. But if you go also by my personal, on helping other people, or
Right.
what I consider, listen.
Give us examples when you
well,
helped other people.
It's just, in other words, because I've done what I've done, well, it's hard to say. It's everyone's opinion, right? I dealt drugs, so I'm a bad guy.
Well, we had a conversation that's interesting. I told you once, I wouldn't say opportunity, but I've had the chance, I guess, to do the same thing.
Right.
This was many years ago, and make some quick money.
Right.
Who doesn't want to make some quick cash? But I told you that it would bother me that I might sell something to a child, a kid, because I'm giving him the stuff. He might go out and fuck up his whole life the
Without
next
a doubt.
20, 30, 40 years of his life.
Without a doubt.
And your response was,
Well, it's different.
just tell me what your response is. You remember what your response was?
No, I don't actually.
Your response was, if it's not
If it's not, if it's not me, it's someone else selling it to me.
right, and
But you-
that's what you said to yourself to rationalize the crime.
Well, this is what it is. It's you got to remember, I was also 19, 20 years old.
Right.
So I was dealing to guys who were my age. So I wasn't 50 or 40 dealing to kids who were 17, 18.
Right.
I was dealing to guys my age
Right.
that were going out on the weekends and doing whatever they were doing.
Right.
They were friends of mine. So
right,
that's
but
what I
whether
was
they're
doing. I
kids or
wasn't doing
adult,
it.
though, whether
But
the
you got
kids
to
or
remember,
adults,
I'm not. When you're her age, right? You're 19. When I'm 19 at her age,
Yeah.
and I'm hanging out with my 19-year-old friends, and they
Right.
want to get high, and they want to buy it from me, all right, I'll sell it to you. I don't care, because that's the way you think at 19. I'm not thinking that way at 35, 40, 50.
Sure.
But at 19, that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
You want to get it? I'll sell it to you. It's going to be me or someone else, someone in a club or whatever. You're going to get it. So might as well be me, and I'll make it.
At 19, you're not really perceiving that as a risk.
Without a
but
doubt.
you're the guy that wants to do machismo. You're making money. You're
Of
making
course.
money, and you're impressing your friends. and
Without
then,
a doubt.
And then you're impressing the guy that's supplying you that, hey, Jimmy can move product for me. So you know what? Jimmy's going to step up and probably be my number one guy, and maybe I'll move him up in the rank.
The one lesson my father taught me.
go ahead.
The perfect crime is a crime done alone.
Correct. I agree with that.
That was it. That's what I've learned.
I can agree with that one.
We're all in agreement.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That was what
Tony,
I
you
learned.
agree with that, obviously?
Tony Francesi. His son on the witness stand testified and said to the jurors, "You'll never get a witness to say they saw my father kill anybody." because he went alone and did his own work and he had no witness.
Granted, okay, so we're all in agreement with that. Bill,
You know, we work in a business. There's the good guys and the bad guys, and if you that's why you want to paraphrase it. But Jimmy's family, ADAs, then there's defense attorneys, then there's where you do the white collar bookmaking, and then there's the narcotics, and then I had a service. I had the thrill of I wanted to be the thrill of the hunt. I was a kid. They used to call me Dick Tracy.
right.
You know, I always thought, you know, I know law enforcement is 85% service, but you know what? When you're in the position where you're working, you can do some good. It makes you feel good.
There had to be details in your life that shaped the fact that you went into law enforcement.
I grew up in a mixed neighborhood. I grew up in Corona, Queens. So
Right.
growing up, my best friends were black, Spanish, white, Irish, whatever. And I find by coming from the city, you really get a chance to understand the pulse of what's going on.
Right.
And it's just a matter of, I always just thought that being a good guy and being fair.
Right. Could you have gone the other side?
The big joke is you leave narcotics, you retire, the first thing you do is you open up a smoke shop because you know how to do it.
Iriona, by the way, Iriona is a student. She's a political science major. I think you also want to get into production. Would you
Yeah.
tell me something about you were doing something?
Yeah, short films.
Right. So you want to get into media as well, which is totally in the opposite ends of what political science is. What was your interest for doing this?
Well, actually, when I was in high school, I did some work for the Center for Court Innovation, and we actually created like a police training video for
Right.
that. And also, I did like focus groups with NYU grad students who were trying to implement more classes for police training. And so, and also just like from the neighborhood that I come from personally, I
Right.
see a lot of people going different directions with their lives, and the police are always patrolling my neighborhood
Right.
constantly, like clockwork.
When you were a child, did you do anything, Cyrus, that was looked
Illegal?
down upon from the force?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what were those things? In other words, first of all, did you divulge that when you go get the job with the?
No, it's better
No,
that you don't. It's
Right.
better that you don't. I mean, I was no altar boy. You
Right.
know, and it's just you know, it's funny. Like those things carry over. Like you are who you are. So you know, I took the job, and then I was doing things like on the job. Nothing crazy, like nothing, but just like
Right. No
there's-
murder or
There's
anything like
there's a lot of rules. You know, there's rules like everything else. And then it's like you're doing stuff, and you're like, oh man, I probably shouldn't have done that, or like you know whatever. You know, just like, you know, mostly administrative stuff, you know, because you're just used to doing things your own way.
Right.
But then, which was lucky, you know, going into narcotics was very lucky for me.
Right. Did you ever bump into guys that you knew?
Yeah, actually, it's funny, yeah. I bumped into a few guys
Undercover, not
from
undercover.
my old projects.
From your old projects.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
They obviously knew who you were. So does that not compromise?
Oh, we hadn't kept in touch. I knew them, you know, they
Oh,
knew me, but it
okay.
wasn't like,
But they
you know,
knew who you were, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Does that compromise your undercover work?
No.
No.
It actually enhances it.
It's credibility.
It
It's
gives you credibility, and-
Like, oh
and
yeah,
that-
you always, you know, it's,
Yeah, but
it's
if
always
you're
be-
known, if you're trying to infiltrate, say, a gang,
right.
and somebody spots you,
Right.
Don't you have any fear that that's gonna?
Well, they don't know I'm a cop. They know me from back in the day.
Oh,
So they
I
know,
see,
hey,
I
what's
see, I see
going
what you're
on?
saying.
So they're quite comfortable with me, and I'm, you know, obviously I know them.
The
You know, maybe,
party.
yeah, you know, we
Right.
talk, you know, shoot the shit a little bit. And then
You know,
that's it.
Bill, when I speak to you, I always get a different kind of cop because we've had plenty of conversations. You always seem very rational. And dare I say it, I also have some other friends who are cops, not so rational. And so you're able to actually draw the line and say what's right is right, you know,
Yeah.
and what's wrong is wrong. Whether you're a cop or you're a bad guy, Jimmy, on some level, is a nice guy, right? Talking
Absolutely,
to him, right?
absolutely. Oh,
When you guys were up in the conference room, when you were talking, everybody got along, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, a little bit. I had a problem with
Cyrus? Well, don't push your luck.
No. It was all good.
So I want to talk a little bit about people shot dead by cops. According to the Washington Post, in 2015, there were 995 people shot dead by cops. In 2016, we got a little better, 963. And as of last week, there were 624 people shot by cops. And that puts us 14 more fatalities this year as there were same time last year. Seems like a lot of people, doesn't it?
Without trying to sanitize it, and this is going to sound like I'm trying to sanitize it and just like, oh, you know, it happens. But you got to think, like, in the NYPD, city of 9 million people, right? You know how many people get arrested a day?
Break it down per capita.
You know how many people get stopped a day? You know how many interactions the average cop has with a person? So when you look at it and go, you know, in a country of 400 million, and you go, okay,
Exactly.
700 people were killed. Listen, a cop, anybody killing anybody is horrible. A cop taking out his gun in the line of duty or whatever, you know, taking somebody's life, horrible. Right. We can all agree that it's horrible.
I'm with you.
You don't,
I agree.
you don't want to be there. But given the totality of how many interactions and how many touches the average cop has a day with people, and for it to go bad, it's
Of course.
it's not as bad as it seems.
You know what? The point you
If you-
make is actually, for me, an outsider, I'm not a cop,
Right.
sounds logical.
Right.
Sounds reasonable.
But if you're the parent and loved one
also
of a cop,
surprised to see, I mean, you totally in
I
agreement
agree with
that.
them 100%.
Right.
I could put a whole nother spin on it.
Go ahead.
So growing up, if you had an issue with somebody, it was conflict resolution. You worked it out. You dealt with people. People now coming on, especially into the job, what is their conflict resolution? What was their engagement with somebody else? They're all buried in the video games. They all played video
It's
games growing
ridiculous,
up.
man.
And now, all of a sudden, they take the oath, they take the training, and their first experience with conflict resolution is, I got to go to my strongest arm, which is my firearm.
seriously.
Put your gun down, really?
Now,
Crazy.
we're not there on the scene, so we don't know, we're not going to second guess what their actions were. But that was always my discussion. Conflict resolution, people don't have it anymore. People don't work it out amongst themselves.
Do you see any difference between this generation of cops and the generation of cops when you were doing your service?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so, I mean, on some level, though, we never had close to 1,000 shootings a year nationally, right?
You know what? Statistics reinvent themselves as we get
Well, maybe
more.
they did.
As
Maybe
we
we did.
As we get
and
more
now they're
scientific.
being a little bit proactive about.
It's easier to gather data today than it was
Right.
years
Yeah.
ago.
You said to me that cops take shortcuts,
The thing is, you work within
meaning refusing to get subpoenas, you know, whatever they need to do to actually stay within the realm of the law.
There were shortcuts taken, and we've all taken them. But you know what? It used to be with me. Somebody used to say to me, the boss used to say, "Sarge, what was the decision?" I said the decision was based on nobody is getting hurt, nobody is getting hurt, arrested, killed, indicted. So you know what? It was a good decision.
Right. Do you see a lot of that? Cops taking shortcuts?
Shortcuts?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I see a lot of cops not doing enough. You know,
Right.
there's a lot of guys that don't want to get involved because now to get involved is now you're in the game. You know, you could lose your house, you could lose your car, you could lose your freedom.
Right. Should they be cops?
You know,
Should they
no,
be cops?
there shouldn't be cops. I mean, because it's a decisive thing, right? You're in this uniform. Most guys are in this uniform, and it's like, hey, I need help, and like you show up, and it's like if you hesitate for a second, I don't care if it's moving somebody back from a scene or taking actual action and grabbing a guy. If you hesitate for a second, someone can die.
Does that create an animosity within the system itself?
I mean, between lazy and proactive.
Yeah, in other words, we've had discussions with you about some cops. They get too aggressive. They don't play by the book. They don't play by the rules. And then you pulled guys off to the side. You've had discussions with them.
It's constant training.
Does that create animosity
No.
and conflict within the system
It's
itself?
it's the ones, in my opinion, it's the ones that didn't want to get involved, or they look for that boss that intervenes and can pick out the workers and make the right guys right and bring the bad guys or the guys that are on the fence, bring them back in. So cops, in my opinion, I think they rather see strong leadership.
So we're talking about cops, and you have the distinction of beating one up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So you grew up in a very primitive world, all right, because you came from, the world you came from, right? From day one.
Came from Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
First of all, you said something interesting once. You said you like local cops better than feds. Is that correct?
I said I favor a uniformed cop. I know he's a cop, but a Fed, I don't know what the hell he is.
So that's the only reason is because you know who is who when they're wearing the uniform.
And because
right?
I grew up with the cops in uniform, I had 2 cousins that were cops in uniform.
Right. How did you
at
regard
the
them?
90 precinct in Greenpoint.
How did you regard the 2 cops in uniform when you grew up with them?
They used to walk me to school when I was.
So you had a good relationship with
Because
them.
we didn't take a bus. We didn't have a bus pass. I was 10 years old going to grammar school, walking 8 blocks.
Right.
And the cop would swing his club around as he walked with me. We had him on a beat then.
When you got older,
Yeah.
you came to regard cops in a negative way, right? Fair to say?
Not 100%.
Not 100%. Well, you have to sort of, to a certain degree, in that world, you have to sort of.
Well, let me tell you something. My father taught us to respect the uniformed cop that's on the beat.
Right.
And that's the individual who's going to help you.
Right.
I was whacked on the backside by a cop with his club when I grew up to be a teenager, and I was drinking in those days in the local taverns.
What were you doing?
I was hanging out on a street corner, making a lot of noise, and
Right.
the cop would come over with his club, move on. We move on.
Right.
Even though he hit me on the backside with the club, move on, because I
Right.
didn't move fast enough.
I got you. Okay. So.
So we were taught to respect that cop. So I grew up mentally with a mental block that I respect the uniformed cop.
Sure. Right.
And that's
you-
how because we had relatives in the family who were cops.
You did some damage to that cop, right? You beat him up pretty
There was
bad.
a reason. The
No,
reason was.
hold on. Let's let's follow the train of thought here, okay? So you did some damage, and after your father raised you to actually respect cops, right? Now you had to go on the lam for a long time, all right? Because
3.5
you did that
years.
right. So you changed your name. You went to where? New Mexico.
Tony Rio,
Right.
I was a fighter.
Did your father, when you had those personal conversations, did he look down upon you and say, "What are you doing, you fucking asshole? Why'd you beat the shit out of a cop?"
He said that.
He did say that.
Yeah, he was on a lam when I beat the hell out of the detective. He wasn't.
Everybody's
he
on a
was
lam in your family.
He was an inspector in Union City, New Jersey. He was trying to shake me down for so much a week because he felt my father was gone because my father was on a lam, and I wouldn't tell him where my father was in the Jersey Shores. And I had the Club Ragdoll in Union City, New Jersey. So he said, from now on, you're going to take care of me. And I said, all right, meet me in the parking lot. But I didn't go alone.
Right.
I had a friend of mine, one of my guys, a crew member, take
Yeah,
the car.
you big pussy. You couldn't handle the guy by yourself?
I did, but I wanted to back up to get away. And you have to realize that when you use the terminology, I beat up a cop. He was drinking, I
How else
was
you want
drinking,
me to
know
say?
the atmosphere. My father's on a lam, and my father was taking care of him. Now he decides I'm going to take care of him because he said your father's on a lam more than 2 weeks. That means he's whacked out. But wait a second.
Go ahead.
Let's not forget that I too was a cop. In the United States Air Force, I was an air policeman. for
Listen,
crying.
make no mistake, Mr. Napoli. I don't. I'm not trying to disrespect you by saying
No, I
what you did.
understand
We all
that,
tried, you know. So you made a mistake and you acknowledged it. As a matter of fact, you
What
said something.
mistake did I make?
Beating up a cop.
No, I didn't make a mistake with that bum.
You know,
That bum trying to reach in my pocket.
you know, Tom, when I
But wait a second, the atmosphere again. Listen, that cop was a captain, became an inspector. He was shaking down every club owner in Union City, New Jersey, not just
he
me.
was a bad guy.
Yeah, so I became
Bad
a
guy.
hero.
Bad guy with a badge.
And I had to go on a lam 3.5 years because this same inspector was taking money from the mob guys to help them out and whatnot. I wasn't supposed to touch him. I was supposed to get permission.
Right. So we all agree, bad cop, and on some level, it's justified what he did. Was there another way that he can handle it without actually?
Yeah,
beating the
without
cop?
alcohol in me, I wouldn't have done nothing.
So
My
you're saying
father was
if
the
you
one
were-
who said you have that false courage. He
Right.
meant alcohol.
I'm sure they could have went up within the
But
organization.
he was
and
also an alcoholic. the
It was
cop.
A shrink would analyze something and tell you that you do things for reasons other than what the obvious reasons are. Meaning you wanted money, you wanted to attract.
Survival. That's all. It's survival. You're in the
Survival,
street.
okay.
I'm probably closer to like what your brother's doing.
Right.
Your relationship with your brother.
Right.
Probably closer to him, except I might have my head a little straighter than he does. But it's survival, man. Listen,
Absolutely.
since I was 18, my parents gave me nothing. Here, go in the streets and
Okay,
survive.
so
that's what you do.
If you say that it's survival, what you're saying is it's fear. It's fear of not really making enough money to pay your rent, not having enough money to have a car. So
Correct.
on some level, it's fear, and the fear drives you to do something that is against the law.
Yeah. I mean, look, it survived. Did I have to turn to drugs? No. I could have went out and I'm a moron.
Right.
I could have went out and got a job at 19 and went back to school and did this, did that.
Right,
and
because
shit.
I know
But,
personally you're a very
it's-
smart guy.
It's what it is.
And not only that,
Yeah.
but you have a personality too. So
I
smarts and
slight.
personality,
Little
you
bit.
could have taken that far.
Without a doubt.
Right. So is it safe to say that maybe you took an easy road out?
But you don't know it. When I'm, again, sorry, Ivy. When I'm 19 and you got no one telling you, this is the way you should do it.
And you gotta, another thing too is you gotta look at it like certain environments, like the environment I grew up in. People say, oh, it's a jungle out there. Like it literally is. And you have to
And I grew
position
up
yourself.
in the streets, man. I was in the streets. I grew up in the Bronx, West. I grew up in the streets, so it's survive.
But I never see Jimmy, though, back then operating in panic mode. I don't think you ever really panicked.
No.
You were calculating.
I
you
did
put
good.
it together, right?
I did whatever I did by myself.
Right.
Never hurt anybody. Again, your definition is, of course, the drugs hurting guys, and I get it. I get all that.
I don't know if you discussed this, but Jimmy recently came down with a bout of cancer. What
You won't be seeing me
what,
for long.
what kind of cancer?
Prostate stage
Prostate
4.
cancer. I got to hand it to you. For a guy who is a 4th stage prostate cancer patient,
You know about
you
that,
seem
I'm
like you're a
telling
very happy guy. I mean, you seem
Not
like you
gonna
just.
get
I mean,
me,
you,
man.
so if they say attitude is everything,
Attitude is everything.
you got a great attitude, and I applaud you
Did
for
it. Went through chemo. I just finished 50
you.
Wow.
days of radiation. Stay positive, man. That's all you can
Absolutely.
do. That's why I like the color.
The very first time the doctor says to you, you have 4th stage cancer, what went through your mind?
It was. There was a TV show on the other day. Had the same thing. with
Well,
the
tell
guy.
me what went through your
My
mind.
mind was. I don't want to say it was almost. He got more upset than I did. The doctor telling me.
Doctor knew you
just-
personally?
No, first time I ever met him.
Right.
But
Why
he-
did he get upset?
I guess you don't want to tell anyone that you got stage 4 cancer. He
Right.
told me.
The question to
and I
you
just kept
is,
telling him, look, so I got it. Smile. What are you getting down for?
the question to you is, did you ever think maybe karma is a way of karma getting you back?
Nah, you know what? Not
Do you
with
believe
that.
in karma?
Not with, I do believe in it, but
Yeah.
not with that.
Well, wait a
Not
minute.
with
If you
that.
believe in karma, why don't you believe with that?
Because I don't think I did that much bad in the world to catch this.
Right.
Karma, I think, gets you for what you've done.
That's not a good balance. In other words, you
It's
didn't
an
do that
unfair
much
balance.
bad
When
shit
you're talking
to
about
get.
life and death, it's an unfair balance.
If you got diabetes, would that be
that
a fair
would be
balance?
a fair balance. Then I'm okay. You give me anything. You want to take one of my legs, I'm okay. But it is what it is. Guys, I stay positive. I smile, I
And you
laugh
know what?
every day, I enjoy every moment, and that's the way it is, and that's the way I live.
Iriona, did these guys say anything to you that stood out to you?
Well,
Did
yeah.
you learn anything here yet
Jimmy.
that kind of struck you?
Yeah, well, actually, Jimmy said something with the whole survival thing.
Yeah.
I come from a predominantly Hispanic and Black neighborhood, and it's true. Like a lot of people go into drugs or go into not organized, but gang-related, things, and so it's because they need to survive. When you hear a statistic like a white male who's been incarcerated has a better chance of getting a job than a black man, like that's a real statistic.
Right.
So when you have all these adversities and you're trying to make money, you're trying to support a family, you may turn to alternatives.
We live in this world now, right? It's been written day after day that black people don't have the same opportunities that white people have. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right. So on some level, and I'm sure maybe Jimmy, would you disagree with that or no?
100%.
Okay. Hold that, hold that thought. Do you look at Jimmy and say, what the fuck, man? I mean, this guy's a white, good-looking guy, tall, handsome personality. He has all the opportunities in the world. Why do that?
Anyone can end up on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yes.
And like there's a lot of people, regardless of race, who are struggling. It's just that generational poverty just happens to be more common with minorities.
But Jimmy claims that he did it for survival.
Poverty can strike anyone,
Right.
regardless of race.
Right, but Jimmy, you didn't come from poverty.
No, but it's not necessarily.
No, we weren't. We were far from. Where I grew up.
Yeah.
We were the only white family where I grew up.
Right,
I grew
but
up
you
in the
grew up in a
Bronx.
good-
It was all. It was. I grew up in a black neighborhood.
So did you
it
grow-
had nothing to do with skin color. I was black growing up.
Right. Did you have a nice childhood? I mean,
I loved it.
No,
Great
in the
childhood.
sense that it wasn't poor. In other words, your father
No,
provided.
no. It was just. I guess.
You lived in a
middle
nice
class
house?
Or no, lived in an apartment building.
Right.
Shared a room with my brother.
Right.
But when you're that age, you don't even know what rich and poor is. You're just out in the streets.
Well, Jimmy, what kind of criminal was your father if you couldn't provide a decent living?
I'm not saying he didn't provide a decent living, but
No,
it's
but I
what
would-
your definition of decent living.
Right.
In other words, when you're that age, you don't know. We
I'm
ate
only
every
ha- I'm
day.
only half
No,
joking,
no.
by the way, but
No,
okay.
but I'm just saying, what is considered decent living?
Right.
You take someone from Port Washington whose dad's making $3 million a year,
Right.
and you put him in where I live, and oh my God! Or you take someone from from some other third world country, and he's living like a king.
Right.
So, what's your definition of decent living?
Right.
Right? For me, it was just, I was living. I didn't know what decent living was or what it means.
Cyrus, when you find out that Tony beat up a cop, do you look at him any differently, or in other words, because that is, I would imagine, from a cop's perspective, any cop's perspective, a demerit.
No, I don't look at him differently. I don't look at him differently.
No.
It's the
Because-
thing. You know what it is? It's like
Why don't you look at him differently? Because do you say, well, he's an older guy now, he's done some
no,
fucked up
it's
things
business.
in his life, he's
it's
repented?
business. Like when I was growing up, there was this cartoon where the sheepdog and the wolf used to show up to this field every day. It was like a Looney Tunes cartoon, and the wolf would try to eat the sheep, and the sheepdog would beat the hell out of the wolf. And at the end of the day, they'd both clock out and, all right, see you later, Sam. See you later.
Thanks. Nice day, huh, Sam? Yep. Good to be alive, Ralph.
And it's just business. Like when I show up, when I show up and me and you square off, the better man's gonna win.
That's interesting. Do you hold the same perspective?
You know, that the fact that it was an inspector and the fact that this inspector had complete retribution to turn him into a missing person. And you know what? You got to give him credit that
Time out.
he went heads up on
Time out. Time out. I don't mean to jump in. Why did you get in a fight? Was he shaking you down?
He was trying
Yeah,
to shake
That's
me.
it. It ends the
Exactly.
conversation
My
right
father-
there.
my
The guy
father-
got what he deserved.
No,
That's the end of
but
it.
Jimmy, I'm not actually looking down on anyone.
No,
I'm
I
just
know you're
trying
not. I'm just
because
saying, though.
I agree
The uniform goes out the window.
That's right. That's right. We're all in agreement.
Oh no, listen, the guy's
When
dirty.
a cop
he's
does
dirty.
something
Yeah.
fucked up,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Is there a problem with police departments in general? Because I find the biggest problem with cops now, because cops are getting a bad rap. And in many cases, rightfully so. I don't know if you guys saw the video recently of somebody scanning somebody, putting their fingers up a woman's, I don't know if it was the back or the front, for 11 minutes to find out
Yes,
if...
I read it.
You heard about that, which
on
is,
the
to
TV.
me, I mean, I don't know the rules like you guys know the rules.
I'm sure there's a rule against that.
But that seems like an absurd thing.
Yeah, the uniform.
On the street, when they got pulled over, now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a cop, but I would imagine you'd be able to find something if something was in there after, what, 20, 30 seconds?
Yeah, there's a whole procedure for strip searching. That's
Yeah, that's-
considered a strip search, and that doesn't happen in the field.
Right,
it
so
shouldn't.
that's an example, though, where cops get a really bad
Well,
rap.
that's a breakdown to a supervision, and then it's a matter of the uniform changes people. They think they put on that
Yep.
costume, and all of a sudden, there's somebody else.
Agree, and that's a major issue, but the bigger issue that I think we have is, and you guys can chime in, is that the good cops never come out and say, yes, what he did was fucked up. And so
They
there's
do.
this
They do.
blue wall of silence, as they say.
Not so much. I mean, I've been in
Nobody wants to
situations
hear
where it's
that.
like, you sit there and, listen, man, maybe that was a line, and now you motherfucker each other, and it's like, well, whose side are you on? And now
Yep.
it's a
Yep.
fucking side thing, or it becomes a color. Every time a black guy gets shot, everyone looks at me. Everyone at work is like, so what do you think about And then and now you got to walk a line. You're like, all right, you got to punch this guy in the face because listen, sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes cops are wrong.
Well, I'm going to read something
And
here.
sometimes people are wrong.
There was a guy who was a really bad cop, and this kind of reminds me of the movie Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel. I mean, that kind of bad, right? Officer Timothy James arrived to lend a helping hand to his fellow boy in blue, but he decided to give a knuckle sandwich to one of the teenage suspects in the back of his squad car. No reason at all. He repeatedly punched one of the arrested and handcuffed teens, a 17-year-old child, in the face. The sergeant saw it all from his patrol car, and then like a good cop is supposed to do, he arrested James. He arrested the cop that was punching the teen, right? It's not the first time that this guy's been arrested by his own police force.
Put your hands out the window!
It's the second time inside a month. But that's not all, it gets better. This model cop has already killed a pedestrian with his squad car, too. On at least 10 different occasions, James has been in violation of departmental policy. Officer Timothy James has been charged with battery in the beating incident, but has not been fired. So the question is that this guy, how many chances does he get? And it is very strange that he goes through this whole thing. He's had all these violations, and he's still on the force, and he's still collecting a paycheck, resigned to a desk job.
No matter what side of the fence or where we were, who we are, we all agree that this guy's got to go.
Yeah.
Right, but obviously his superiors don't.
Well, you know what? It could
When we
be
say the system, it
The
really
system-
comes down to one or two superiors.
Well,
now.
it's the superior, it's the administration in the department, and then it's the city administration that would allow this, with the deputy mayors not intervening and trickling down.
Sure.
And who did the psychological test on this moron to begin with?
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
a real diehard liberal that said this.
Yeah.
'Cause
How
you know what
dare
happens is, what happens is you
No,
fire
it's-
this guy
it's
and
who
it
did
goes
the
up the
test?
chain.
How did he get on the force? How did he ever get a gun and inside? Where? I mean, you got to start way back there. I mean, that's where it begins.
Right.
I mean, who gave him a gun?
You know what's interesting?
And
It's
everybody that
that
signed off on it is now on the hook for everything that
That's
this
I
guy
hope
did.
so. That's where
Yeah.
he should be.
Right.
That person should be fired.
right. So here's the deal. I mean, we all seem to agree on many things here.
We didn't finish yet. Don't worry about it.
You're saying
We
give it
didn't
some
finish.
time, there's gonna
We
be some
didn't finish it,
disagreements?
I'm sure. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Cyrus, from a black man's perspective, stop and frisk. See, because I'll be honest, I'll give you my perspective. I agree that that it could do good. You got to stop people that look like they might be doing something, right?
Right.
And I think that in many cases, if there's smoke, there's fire, particularly if you're in a fucked up area.
Right.
And as a result, that's how you figure stuff out. However, on the flip side of that, I get the sense sometimes that cops abuse it.
Well, yeah. All right. So in the neighborhoods where stop, question, and frisk is prevalent, there's also high impact neighborhoods. So you got a lot of impact cops.
Right.
Impact is a program where they put they kind of flood problem areas with more cops on the street.
Guys out of the academy.
Right. Rookies.
Young guys.
Which is a problem.
No
in and of
conflict
itself.
resolution.
Right,
The guys
just-
that had
yeah.
no conflict resolution playing, Scully and playing off the point.
Right. But so now you have now you got all these cops, right? And they're literally stepping over each other, right? Then you got every corner. And what happens is if you stop every guy coming out of the building,
Yeah.
hey, do you live here? Do you live here? Do you live here? Yeah, it's gonna the stop, question, and frisk. It loses its power. It loses it's not a thing anymore. Now it's just at some level it becomes harassment to the community because they're like, if you're the old person on the stoop, and you're like, well, damn. They stopped everybody. They stopped my nephew. They stopped this person. Now they can't get behind it when you say, hey, listen, we're trying to help the community. They can't get behind it because you stopped their nephew. You stopped, their cousin. You stopped their person on the way from getting their medicine. So now, there's an animosity. Now it's like, it's a tactic now. It's just like you're the Gestapo, like, every time I come outside, I'm getting stopped. So it loses its potency as a tool, like we're here to help you. We're here to stop that guy that doesn't live in the building. We're stopping him because we know he doesn't live there, we know he's selling drugs, so we're stopping him. It loses that when you stop everybody.
Chibi, what are your thoughts on that?
sometimes you have to put people's rights on the side, and it's the right of people who, you know, you hear about these kids getting shot and gang violence and a 4-year-old girl getting shot and a 12-year-old kid getting shot. It's like, for what?
Well, we're
You
kind
know
of
what I'm
veering
saying?
into.
But I'm just saying, it's like, look, man, if stop and frisk helps someone who's innocent from getting shot,
Yeah.
then it's okay with me.
Right.
And I was going to say there is a correlation between the amount of stop, question, and frisk versus, okay, crime happening, shootings and all that stuff happening, and then when they pulled back, there was an uptick.
Right.
And that's just, those are facts. Those are statistical facts that you can look up.
Is it fair game to say that it has become, in some cases, an abusive method?
It's been
there
abused.
There are rogue guys out there who just don't want-
I wouldn't call it an abusive method. I'd say it's been abused, and it's been overused.
Right.
But you got to make it a tool, right? Like, you know, your gun is a tool.
Right.
If you take it out all the time,
Pull up! You ain't gonna do shit! Fuck up!
now you're just abusing it. You know, your taser, whatever it is that you use, is a tool.
Right.
You know.
Have you?
And the biggest tool, I think, is discretion.
This is an interesting statistic from the U.S. Department of Justice. A percentage of local cops who are racial or ethnic minorities has nearly doubled from 1987 to 2013.
Okay.
So now we have, it's reported in the press over and over again, right? You know, some guy shot a black guy, some cops shot this black guy, you know. So, and we have, you know, we have a lot of divisions, right?
Sure.
And a lot of that has to do with race.
Since day one.
You as a black cop, have you encountered that on some level?
No, not really.
Not
I mean,
in
I
New
was because you know I came on patrol for a while. You know, I was on the street, I was in transit, and then I went right into narcotics. So
Not you personally, but have you actually encountered other white cops being maybe a little bit more aggressive towards a black guy than a white guy?
they're a little bit more insensitive. That they just don't know. You know, guys are from out East Cupcake, you know, Long Island. You know, so they're not in tuned. they're not in tuned. You know, to the realities of living in the city. Like, you know what? We don't have porches. We don't have stoops. So we're outside in front of the building. That's our porch. You know, so guys maybe are a little insensitive to that. So they kind of rush in. Hey, what are you guys doing? You know, it's more that I've seen. I've not seen like.
Do you think we have a problem? I'm not saying just New York, nationally. With, I mean, because, you know, Southern Poverty Law Center reports on all this stuff. We see it in videos every day now. Do you think there's an issue with white or black cops? I mean, sometimes it's a black cop where they disproportionately target black people. I'm not talking about New York. I'm talking about national.
I think law enforcement is evolving, and the way that people are looking at things are changing, because before it was, if there's a high, you know, again, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So people's perception of poor people, black people, whether it's Mexicans or whoever, in a certain area, they flood that area, and they come down, and everybody gets arrested. You know, everybody's got, you know, a record of some sort. Everybody's been interacting with the police, and I think law enforcement is evolving. So now, you know, the way that people investigate, the way their interaction with the neighborhood, the way the interactions with, you know, this investigations are run are being changed, so it's pulling back now.
Are you for or against Black Lives Matter?
I'm for it in the sense that, you know, I see what they're trying to do with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, but as someone who's been on the ground, face to face with a Black Lives Matter protest in uniform, and been called all sorts of names, and it's just like, you know.
Black Lives Matter protesters call you names.
The worst names you can imagine.
The N-word?
Not the N-word, the house nigger. Like, you know, that.
Well,
you
that's
know.
the N-word.
No, but I mean, let's just say it. No, let's just say it. Let's not. You know, that's what it is, and you're like, you're this close, and it's like.
I can't say. You can say you're black.
I mean, but imagine.
According to Ice Cube.
Yeah.
You know, it's your word, not mine.
I don't even want it. I don't claim that word.
Right.
But it's.
So, but you've been.
Yeah, when you're on the ground and you're there and you're like, and if I remember the first protest I went to, I was like, wow, is this my generation's civil rights movement? Am I on the wrong side of things?
Right.
You know, as a cop.
Right. Did you?
You know,
you felt that?
I felt that.
Yeah.
I honestly, seriously, we're marching and I'm like, holy shit, I should be. You know, and then
That's interesting.
And then you get to the reality of it. Then you get you know, you're sitting across from the guy, and the guy's like, you fucking nuts, you fucking nuts. And you're like, wait, you hate the police? And then you try to, you try to rationalize it like, well, all right, you guys, have this protest, this big protest, and you come downtown at 6 o'clock in the afternoon on Center Street, and you want to scream and yell.
Right.
But in Bed-Stuy, some kid got shot last night.
Sure.
And you try to rationalize, well, why don't you guys go there where it matters, where the black people are?
Right.
But then it sounds like you're trying to justify it. You're trying to, you're
here's
talking
the
about
deal.
black on black crime.
I understand. I'm just looking at it from a human's perspective. I don't like the fact that they clog up streets. I mean, there was a huge protest that happened by my neighborhood, and they clogged up the whole West Side Highway.
Well, the
and
thing
there were
is,
people trying to get home.
And that's the thing. Their thing is, we're gonna, one of their chances, shut it down. And that's the thing where I go, listen, what if there's an ambulance coming,
Right.
for some sick old person,
Right.
and you guys block the streets,
Right.
and that person dies because that
Jimmy-
ambulance didn't get there.
Jimmy, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm not for it.
You're not for it.
Not at all.
Right. Well, here's the deal. I just looking at both
I
sides.
mean, I
'cause
feel bad for you, man.
I know
what
you
a conundrum.
You're
Jesus
against
Christ.
Black Lives Matter movement, right?
To me, everyone's lives matter. No one's more important than the other.
Yeah,
That's
but
it,
Jimmy,
end
here's
of
the
story.
thing. I'm going to give you one little shift.
Go.
Okay. Black Lives Matter in addition to every other life.
Well,
I think that's
not
what they're
it-
trying.
Then say it.
Black.
That's fine. Then say it.
Yeah, but
then say it.
It's a name. It's a label.
No,
you
it's not.
can't put a
No,
whole
it's-
sentence
Ku
in it.
Klux Klan is a label.
No.
Nazi is a label. Black Lives Matter is a label.
I know
then
that, but
say
here's
what
the
it
deal.
is.
Isn't it supposed to be without saying
Listen,
it's
Tommy,
understood?
when they're in the streets, you might have been there. When they're in the streets, when do we want cops dead? When do we want them now?
Wait a minute.
Did you hear that or
I
not?
heard it.
That's
I
a
heard it, I
problem.
heard it. I
don't
did hear
care.
it.
That's a
I
problem.
understand that, but
That's
you
a pro-
can't
And
denigrate.
listen, you're getting it from a guy who's on the other side, dude, and to me it's a problem.
Jimmy, I understand, but here's the deal. You can't denigrate a whole movement.
But that it wasn't one person
No,
in the
but wait a
movement.
minute, time out. You can't denigrate a whole movement for a couple of bad
But
seeds.
it wasn't a couple.
So
How many? Were you there? Do you know anything about? Was it a couple or was it a freaking group?
Well, wait a
of
minute, time
500
out.
or
We're not
1,000?
talking about just his.
No, I'm not. I'm
his
just saying
case.
because he might have been there because maybe he was on the ground.
And
That's
by
only
the way, I
reason
don't know if
I'm
you noticed,
asking.
we finally got to the conversation as he claimed where we disagree.
Without a doubt.
Right.
But I don't know who we disagreeing with. You or am I
here's
disagreeing
the
with
deal.
them?
There's nuances, so we have to take the nuances. So
Right.
this is my thought. My thought is that I get really pissed off that these fucks clog the streets, right? And
You're
this-
getting pissed off they're clogging the street, but are you getting pissed off they're saying kill cops?
On the flip side of that is, on some level, I understand why they do it.
Okay. I don't.
I
You can.
understand why they do it because they cannot get any kind of justice any other way, and in order to be heard,
There's got to be
They
other
gotta
ways
make-
than saying
they
kill
gotta make
cops.
big
Dude,
waves.
if you're telling me to kill cops,
Honestly,
I'm against it.
Well, wait a minute, time out,
If you're
time
saying
out.
kill anybody, I'm against it.
yeah, but the whole
That's
notion.
not your voice.
Yeah, but the whole notion of you claiming that the Black Lives Matter movement kills cops, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying part of it does. There was a section of it or
There's
a
a
part
sentiment.
of it that
There's
does.
a sentiment.
Have you
throughout-
always have you has any first of all has anybody because I have never heard any Black Lives Matter person killing a cop. That's never been reported. Has anybody?
Okay.
Yes.
I've been to Black Lives Matter protests, like
Right.
participated in it.
Right.
And I'm not gonna lie, like even I've had conflicts with like, should we be protesting? Like, are there other alternatives? But the way that I see it, it's like sometimes it is like misdirected energy. And like if you look at the system, like it's been said time and time again, when you talked about that guy, who approved him? Why is he still there? You know, it's like hierarchy.
Right.
It's the system that we hate. It's not necessarily the cops.
Right, which I've maintained all along. And here we are, we're pissing and moaning and arguing about you have your thoughts, I have mine, Cyrus has his, we all have each other's thoughts. But at the end of the day, the system is so broken that it prevents anybody from doing the right thing. I think it prevents, and stop me if I'm wrong, Bill, it puts cops in a bad light because of the bad cops that are doing bad things, and the good cops don't speak out against those bad cops.
No, there's a whole
but
unit
I'm
that
not-
chases down
I'm
bad
not,
cops.
I'm not
I
isolating
hate.
cops. So then on the flip side, I remember I saw a video once of Black Lives Matter movement, and they stormed. Bernie Sanders was doing a presentation. They stormed his podium and they took over the microphone and said,
Yeah, I saw it.
We are time.
and that pissed the shit out of
That's
me.
just
right?
a pylon thing.
Now Sanders was he was calm
That's
about
because
it,
that's the way
relaxed.
he is.
Sure, but I didn't like that. When they occupied, what was it, Wall Street, what the fuck was that called again?
Oh, the Occupy
Zuccotti
Wall Street. or-
Square.
Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
That
wasn't Black Lives Matter. That was
Zuccotti,
totally different.
Zuccotti Park when
In
they took over.
Zuccotti Park, right. So Occupy Wall Street is actually, in theory, a really good movement, but I went down there and there was a lot of idiots there.
They're morons.
Of course.
So the thing is,
They have no idea why they're there.
right, Tony, you agree with all this? Or you're looking at me, you might have a disagreement.
Well, when it came to Black Lives Matter, you had stated that you never heard of any member of Black Lives Matter killing a cop.
Yes.
I thought the
That's
ones in
not
Dallas,
wrong.
right?
I thought,
Isn't the one
yeah,
in Dallas
that was
the
a
five
cop
cops?
shooter
Well, that was
killed
a-
a cop.
well, that was a-
Wait a minute,
march, but
that
that
wasn't
guy-
a black light. There
That
was
guy
nothing.
was just, you know. That
There
guy
was nothing on
I
record.
thought they had something on him. With,
He
with,
had some
with
kind
that.
of
No, he had a rifle and he took out.
Look, well, first of all, any rogue person can come up
he
and say,
he killed the black cops and he shot himself too.
Well, his issue was with law enforcement. So his thing was, I'm against law enforcement for the mistreatment of black people.
The two cops that got shot in New York, right?
Right.
Recently. The guy who came down from Boston, I think he
Right.
was, right?
Yeah.
Baltimore came up from Baltimore.
Wasn't he also Baltimore? Okay, wherever. Wasn't he also something to do with that? Am I mistaken?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't in Black Lives Matter.
He
was
wasn't
just,
in it,
he
but
was
didn't
just-
it influence?
Right. So
influence
the negative.
in it? I don't
right,
know,
the
however
sentiment-
you want to cut
right,
it.
So the
There's
negative
two
police
cops that are
sentiment.
dead
yeah.
with bullets in their head because this moron
Right.
thinks it's okay.
Right.
And if that influenced him, right? If it influenced him, if it did,
Right.
then that's a problem.
any rogue guy can
You're
go
right,
out.
and I agree
Jimmy,
with you.
let me finish. Any rogue guy can go out and do whatever he wants, and then just out of the clear blue sky brand himself, hey, I'm with the Black
You're
Lives
right.
Matter.
I agree.
I remember at that time, actually, the repercussions or the effect that created was a lot of cops and black people. They had this. I saw some videos where they were hugging.
It's like that'll happen, and then like everyone remembers that they like the police now. Everyone's like, oh man, it humanizes them. You know, when you see, unfortunately, something like that has to happen to humanize the cops and go, oh man, these guys have families, blah blah blah. Yeah, we like law enforcement, and then a couple of weeks later,
It's forgotten.
you get a fucking parking ticket, and it's like fucking pigs,
Yeah.
fucking cops, and it's back to square one.
Black Lives Matter was a black boy is the victim of a gunshot wound.
Right.
The argument is, well, the police department, the white cops don't put the resources in to find out who killed my boy, but meanwhile, if it was on the other side of town, there'd be an all-out effort.
Is that the case?
So that's how it stemmed. That's how it initiated.
Right.
In New York,
That's not reality, though.
the reality in New York City is if somebody sneezes and there's a crime, years ago, it used to be the cop in the adjoining sector car to collect evidence. Now you get a mobilization, you get the task force, you got an evidence
Absolutely.
collection team.
Yeah.
You get the full Monty
Video
on a
camera. Yeah.
shooting.
Forget about
So shame on them for then coming to New York and saying Black Lives Matter. Yeah, we take care of, administration says nobody does it the way we do.
Like I said before, it's misdirected energy. And also, if you think about it, who are the faces that we're seeing on television? We're seeing the police officers. And a lot of people aren't educated on the system and who's the higher ups. So, yeah, when we see cops shooting black people, who are we going to first? The cops. And in my opinion, that's really wrong because there is a lot of misinformation, a lot of miseducation.
Right.
But also, if you think about it, who is able to, there's racial divisions within the Senate. Who's making the laws? Who is, supervising the police department? You're not really seeing a lot of black faces.
Years ago,
Yeah.
the black people did not come out
What do you mean?
the
they
way
didn't
they are now.
They didn't come out?
protesting. They didn't come out to protest. They stayed home.
Social media. he's
The
talking
civil
about.
rights movements in the 60s? What do you
doesn't
call that?
He doesn't mean it
What was
that way.
that?
He means
I don't mean it
across
that. I
country. He
mean
means
in the
across country.
local, the streets. They stayed home and they did not come out to protest like they do now.
It's different now.
And
Social
that's
media
why you got
changed
that.
everything.
So
I
what
think
they're
you-
doing now
I will agree
is
with you a
they're
little
tired
bit.
of sitting back.
Well, Jimmy, I think he says with the social media, and the social media allows people to
Without a doubt.
coordinate.
the
right? Is that true?
internet, Look, the internet got Trump
Absolutely.
president, didn't it?
I want to go back into this Black Lives Matter movement
Go.
a little bit. You're against it, obviously,
Totally.
right? On some level, can you understand why they do it? Why they've organized and,
No.
and protest? No.
No.
So yes or no?
No.
No.
Oh, go.
Another
go,
question.
Go. In other
do you-
words, look,
do
Tommy,
you
this isn't
believe-
a
do you-
perfect
do you
world, dude. We're
believe-
not living in a perfect world. There aren't perfect cops. They're not robots. Shit's
Granted.
going to happen. Do
Granted.
you know that there are more whites killed per capita by
Yes, there's-
cops,
there's been-
by
there's-
cops
yes.
than there are blacks?
Well, I
do
don't
you
know.
Do you
I don't
know
know
that?
I don't know personally.
So I don't.
But wait a minute. Let me finish.
And that was done by a Harvard professor who happens to be a black woman.
No, wait a minute.
Yes,
wait
yes,
a minute,
yes.
Jimmy. Listen, here's the deal. There's been many studies done that show, or several even, from reputable organizations that have claimed that blacks are disproportionately targeted. Now, maybe not in New York, because you don't see that firsthand as much as you would maybe down south.
Right.
Is that
Right.
Right. So, and you don't see it maybe because you live in New York as well. But if we go with the statistics, we can't ignore the fact that blacks, according to the statistics, I don't know firsthand.
But statistics can be turned so many different ways.
And it's
Tom.
funny, like, I look at it-
I know, but
statistics
why are you
a
so
funny
quick
thing,
though
dude.
to turn that statistic
You know
and maybe
why?
not
Because
turn
you know
another
why?
statistic?
Because don't come into my neighborhood with that shit. When Chicago, there's fucking 50 kids being killed every weekend, and where are they there for Chicago or St. Louis or wherever the fuck? I mean, what the fuck?
Right.
Go over to Chicago and protest in South Side of Chicago, and then come and talk to me. When the fucking 3,500 kids got shot last year, or 4,000.
Sure.
I gotta go.
talk to
I gotta
me
go,
about
Jimmy,
that.
on that. I gotta go, Jimmy, on that. And
You
it's-
agree with that? Okay,
I
that's
do agree
interesting.
with it because and I've made the same points, and you know they go, oh, well you're just trying to twist it and talk about black on black crime, and I go, listen, crime is crime, and I go, listen, if you want, just like we send the police to where the crimes are, you people should go to where the issues are. Like if they marched in Chicago every night, there'd be less killings. If there were more people on the street saying, hey, this is fucked up, this needs to stop, what are we gonna do about it? You know, what do we want? Justice, when do we want it now? You know,
What
there'd
do
be
you
less
say-
shooting.
What do you say to about the South that has had a history of racism and a disproportionate amount of blacks targeted against cops? Is that the truth? Do you believe that to be the case? Because it does sound logical to me that the cops who have that uniform now in the South, they might have come from racist backgrounds.
Yeah, people are people. And if
Right?
if you've grown up
So you
hating a
can't
certain
control. It's tough to control somebody's DNA who's been conditioned.
Must be cold.
Who's been conditioned from day one to have certain thoughts in their mind about
Right.
black people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like now, law enforcement is changing. It's becoming more, instead of just saying, listen, this is where the black people are, this is where you go to stop crime. And so
Right.
now every person that you see is a criminal. I think that they're pulling back from that and saying, hey, listen, this is a community, people live here, good people exist, you know, maybe, you know, maybe not be the hammer all the time. So I think that's changing. But I think, you know, in the South and in different places, it's just the mentality is, this is a concentration area of, you know, minorities, and this is where we send the police.
Right, Jimmy. Will you meet me halfway? Does that sound logical to you that by default, cops in the South, because they have a history of racism, why the face? All right, let me finish. So, by default, do you think that there's something to the fact that there might be blacks disproportionately targeted in the South?
If you show me proof that there is, then okay, I'll shake your hand on it. But, you know, to make a blanket statement like that and say, you know, because of what happened 50, 60, 40 years ago, that's
I'm
what
not
it is
saying
now
it's
in
true.
2017, I don't know. I don't know what the statistics are, so it's not for me to say. I have
Ivy,
no
what are your
idea.
thoughts?
Regardless of the South, all over America, racism is embedded in the framework of America.
Systemic, yeah.
Yeah, it's systemic.
Right.
And so, and not only that.
How do we break past that? That's the question, right?
Exact.
Would you say it works on both sides?
I mean, all right. Yes.
Okay.
There's black people who are prejudiced against white people.
Yes.
Who are prejudiced freaking against each other. But if you see where that stems from, that's a prejudice that stems from slavery.
Right.
They have, you know, they're on guard because they don't know who to trust.
You see, I have a problem with that.
Okay, Jimmy.
I mean, and I'm
No,
not
no,
gonna,
no, but it's cool what you think.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like, there are a lot of problems with the black community, a lot of stuff that we gotta fix. Like when you say there needs to be protests in like South Side Chicago and black on black crimes, like that's stuff that we gotta work out, we gotta fix.
Right. You're not for white supremacy,
No,
are you?
definitely
not. This alt-right stuff.
Your definition of it.
Look.
No, is it nationalism or are you talking about Ku Klux Klan, Nazi, all that? Fuck them. They're
I don't
idiots,
believe
they're
in
morons.
nationalism.
You
I don't
can't- You know
believe-
what I'm saying? To me, that's not.
I believe that people should be
that's-
treated, as the Constitution says, equally and fairly and
Without a
respectfully.
doubt. The thing with slavery, and I get it, but I don't, it's like, it's done. It's done. Okay, it happened. I get it. It happened.
I know, but-
But I've been hearing this for Tommy. There comes a point, I hear you. Well, we can go.
Look.
But is it going to be another 100 years? Or
Jimmy,
another
here's-
200 or 300? Like, when is it like, okay, I got it. I got
Okay.
it. Now,
Jimmy, let me
you know what I'm
comment
saying?
on what you're saying.
I got it.
You have a certain perspective, and I don't know if that perspective is going to be
It's not a
washed.
prejudice. When I moved out, the first friends I had were black because that's who I grew up with. Nothing to do
No,
with
it has
prejudice.
nothing to
It's
do
something
with
that happened
that.
to you. Can't change. We can't change the history
Jimmy,
of what happened. That sucks.
I don't-
But
I don't-
it's
it's
the
like-
life we live.
I don't know if see, here's the deal. You say it's not a prejudice, and I might say it's not a prejudice, but there will be many people that would argue that it is a prejudice.
Okay.
It's all
That you have a
perspective.
prejudice.
When you lock a guy up, right? You lock a guy up, guy comes out, he's done his time, 5, 10 years. You're like, all right, man, get a fucking job, you know. Stop, don't. And the guy's like, well, I can't. I got locked up. And you're like, it's bullshit, man. You paid, you know, you're out, you're in the world, you're free. What better time to be alive than now? You know, stop fucking around, get a job. And the guy's like, I can't. I've been locked up. It's the same with slavery, man. It's not like a thing where it's like, all right, I've never been a slave. My father's never been a slave. You know, his dad went through some shit. And it's like, it is a systemic thing, man, because you get with these, you know, it doesn't, like, look, I'm a second grade detective in the NYPD. You know, I'm doing amazingly
You're
well.
doing very well.
But
There's something good about a box.
You are only limited by your imagination.
As aggravating as it may be, the conversation will continue. Come.
And they help the Channel 47
Channel
building
47.
fund, which we always need.
We need a building.
Yeah, we need a fund.
Come join the conversation. Come. What do you got to lose, right? Your sanity?
All I ask of you is for you to prove these words are true. You better lunch to show consideration. All I ask of you is to listen to my point of view. You better lunch to show consideration. You should have learned to show consideration.